Rain streaked the cafe window like quiet tears, blurring the city into a gray watercolor. The CEO had been sitting there for over an hour, untouched coffee cooling in his hands, eyes fixed on nothing and everything at once. He was used to boardrooms filled with voices, to numbers that moved at his command, but in that moment, he felt unbearably small. When the woman behind the counter finally spoke, her voice was gentle, almost hesitant. "You look tired, like my husband before he left." The words landed softly, yet they struck him deeper than any accusation ever could. He looked up and met her eyes. She was young, younger than he expected, with a tired kindness in her smile and a sadness she didn't try to hide. Her name tag read Sarah. She quickly added, as if apologizing for crossing an invisible line, "I didn't mean to intrude. It's just. I see that look sometimes." He nodded, unsure why he didn't brush it off like he usually would. Instead, something inside him loosened. "I didn't realize it showed," he said quietly. Sarah poured more coffee into his cup, her hand steady despite the heaviness in her gaze. "It always shows," she replied. "My husband used to come home late every night. Same empty stare. Same silence. Then one day, he didn't come home at all." The CEO felt his chest tighten. He had built companies from nothing, survived betrayals, and stood firm in crises that ruined other men. But this simple honesty, unsettled him. "He left?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. "No. He died." The cafe noise seemed to fade. She told him about the accident, about the hospital room filled with machines, about promises made and broken by time. She spoke without drama, as if she had already cried all the tears she had. "After that," she said, "I realized how tired he must have been. Not just in his body. In his soul." The CEO swallowed hard. He thought of his own life, years of chasing success, sleeping in offices, skipping birthdays, ignoring the quiet voice that begged him to slow down. His marriage hadn't survived that pace. His wife hadn't died, but she had left, carrying with her the warmth he never noticed slipping away. "I'm sorry," he said, meaning more than the words could express. Sarah smiled faintly. "People always say that. But what matters is what they do after they realize someone is tired." That sentence stayed with him long after he left the cafe. In the weeks that followed, it echoed in his head during meetings and flights and sleepless nights. He tried to drown it out with work, but it followed him like a shadow. For the first time in decades, he began to question the life he had built. One evening, he returned to the cafe. Sarah looked surprised to see him. He ordered the same coffee, but this time he drank it slowly. They talked again, about small things at first, books, weather, the way grief changes color over time. Gradually, deeper truths surfaced. Sarah spoke of loneliness, of raising a child alone, of learning to be strong when strength felt impossible. He spoke of pressure, of expectations, of the fear that if he stopped moving, everything would collapse. They were two people from different worlds, bound by the same quiet ache. Challenges came quickly. Rumors spread when people recognized him. The press painted unfair stories. Sarah struggled with doubt, afraid of being judged, afraid of trusting again. He struggled with habits formed over a lifetime, with choosing presence over profit. There were arguments, moments of retreat, nights when both wondered if walking away would be easier. But something was different this time. Instead of running, they stayed. Instead of silence, they spoke. When he canceled a major deal to attend her son's school play, he felt fear and freedom. When Sarah allowed herself to hope again, she felt guilt and healing. The true test came when his company faced a massive crisis. The old version of him would have vanished into work for months. This time, he paused. He remembered the cafe window, the rain, the words that started it all. He chose balance, delegated trust, and faced the storm without losing himself. The company survived. So did he. Years later, the cafe still stood on that corner. The window still caught the rain. But the man sitting there was no longer lonely, and the woman behind the counter no longer carried her grief alone. Sometimes, all it takes is one honest sentence from a stranger to change a life. Not because it hurts, but because it tells the truth. The next morning, the city woke before he did. Sunlight slipped through the curtains of the penthouse he barely remembered buying, touching polished floors that felt colder than stone. The CEO lay awake, staring at the ceiling, Sarah's words replaying in his mind. "You look tired, like my husband before he left." For years, he had measured his mornings by market openings and urgent calls. This time, he measured it by a feeling he couldn't shake, a quiet awareness that something inside him had finally cracked open. At the cafe, Sarah arrived early, as she always did. She tied her apron with practiced hands, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She hadn't expected the men by the window to return to her mind so often. She wondered if she had said too much, if she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Yet part of her felt lighter for having spoken the truth out loud. Since her husband's death, she had learned that silence could be heavier than grief itself. When the bell above the door rang and he walked in again, her heart skipped, not from romance, but from surprise. He looked different. Still tired, yes, but more present, as if he had finally noticed the room around him. He met her eyes, and for the first time, he smiled without effort. "I thought I should thank you," he said softly. "No one has spoken to me like that in years." They sat by the window this time, the barrier between customer and server quietly removed. He told her about the first company he had built with borrowed money and borrowed courage, about sleeping in his car and convincing himself exhaustion was a badge of honor. Sarah listened, recognizing the same stubborn fire that once burned in her husband. She wanted to warn him, yet she knew warnings only mattered when someone was ready to hear them. Her challenge was different but just as heavy. She spoke of raising her son alone, of working double shifts while pretending strength was endless. She admitted her fear of becoming invisible, of being seen only as the widow at the cafe. He felt something unfamiliar stir inside him, respect without power, connection without control. As days passed, their conversations became a quiet routine. He learned the rhythm of her world, she learned the weight of his. But with closeness came tension. He struggled to answer calls without drifting away mid-sentence. She struggled with the idea of letting someone important into her fragile peace. Old wounds pressed against new possibilities, testing whether honesty could survive reality. One evening, rain returned, heavier than before. He arrived late, soaked and shaken. A deal had collapsed, millions lost in a single decision. He expected judgment or pity. Instead, Sarah handed him a towel and said, "Sit. Breathe. You're still here." In that moment, he realized no boardroom had ever given him what this small cafe offered, permission to be human. As the rain slowed, so did his heart. For the first time, he didn't feel the urge to run from failure. Sarah watched him carefully, sensing the shift. She knew the road ahead would not be easy. Trust never was. But she also knew that tired souls recognize each other for a reason. Outside, the city lights flickered back to life. Inside, two broken timelines began to move forward, not with certainty, but with hope.